Hello, everyone. This is Bevin Clare with Meet the Herbalist, and today I have the delight of being here with Jiling Lin. Hello.
Hi.
So, Jiling Lin is an earth-centered acupuncturist, herbalist, and yoga teacher in Ventura, California. She cultivates thriving health for healthcare practitioners, artists, and athletes through clinics and classes, specializing in managing pain, chronic illness, and emotional wellness. Jiling connects wilderness, creativity, and spirit by facilitating herbal workshops, community acupuncture, and other integrative embodied wellness events. And I'm really excited to talk to Jiling because I've been inspired by just her connection with plants. So it was something that didn't get absolutely highlighted in your bio, but I definitely think of you as a very plant-based herbalist, somebody who knows their plants and has that strong plant connection. Just like this big giant plant next to me is my friend. So, um, so welcome and thanks so much for chatting today. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Um, so you're an herbalist. You live in Ventura, California. We've actually been talking with a lot of urban and actually LA herbalists lately, which is interesting. But I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what is it like to be an herbalist there? What do you do?
Hmm. Yeah. So, as an herbalist and an acupuncturist and a yoga teacher, I primarily see patients one-on-one in the clinic. And usually people come in first for acupuncture, and then I offer them herbal medicine as an adjunct therapy if it's appropriate for them. So usually it's internal medicine type conditions, which are most indicated and most helpful because I get a lot of insurance patients as well. And there's kind of a big out-of-pocket expense because insurance doesn't help with herbal medicine. So I'll usually direct people to the health food store or the grocery store or somewhere easy to get herbal medicine. Or if it's somebody with a little bit more means, then I might purchase something from them from the internet and then dispense that to them if it's like a Chinese formula or something which they could not get on their own. And I offer classes, which are currently non-existent due to this pandemic that we're enjoying altogether. And the classes which I used to offer is I used to offer two level classes. One primarily medicine making, and then the other one primarily materia medica. Along with the medicine making class, there was a botany aspect for plant identification. So those were a 10-week series. And then smaller classes with plant walks and little workshops here and there. And then usually once a year, I'll teach at maybe 2 to 3 herb conferences. And I look forward to teaching more in other places as well.
Yeah, going to an herb conference right now sounds so nice. I mean, if it wasn't a pandemic, doesn't it? I would just
I
love.
miss it so
I
much.
know, I miss it too. I miss it too.
Yeah.
So you are trained as both a traditional Chinese herbalist, as well
Mhm.
as a non-Chinese kind of mishmash Western herbalist type. Is that right? You've got both of those skills?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I studied the Chinese medicine, which includes acupuncture, herbs, and everything else. Here in California, we're required to have herbalism, Chinese herbalism as part of our licensure, whereas in other states, it's sometimes yes, sometimes no, depends on the states. It's all over the place here in the US. And then for Western herbalism, I studied with Seven Song and then with Lisa Ganora, and before that and after that, all kinds of people.
So So I'd love to like get a glimpse inside your brain as to how you make decisions around herbal medicine because from my understandings,
Mm,
with Chinese herbs, there's a lot of formulas that are used. A lot of
mhm,
things are kind of pre-formulated and often prepared and available that way. And then we have our kind of more local Westernish herbs, and those tend to be custom formulated for individuals, and they're probably things that you are harvesting maybe more from your ecosystem. So how do you navigate those decisions when you're seeing patients, whether you're going to go with something that's like a traditionally used Chinese formula and follow that path, or if you're going to veer off of it and do something totally different?
Great question. Usually it depends on what what the patient needs, like what the patient is going through, as well as what the patient can afford. So if the patient is going through something like relatively simple, for example, if they wake up in the middle of the night, then I would prescribe some kind of simple Western herbal single herb type thing, like valerian or skullcap, or just something to put next to the bedside as a tincture. Take a couple dropperfuls. Hopefully it'll help to ease your mind a bit and put you right back to bed. If it's something a little bit more complex, like more body systems going on rather than just one sleep thing, for example, then I would think more about pre-existing Chinese formula. But we do customize the Chinese herbal formulas. It's just a little tricky because I don't have my own apothecary right now. And so I have to work with whatever is available from other herbal suppliers. So if I'm working with granules, then it's a little bit easier because I can just add in other granules and customize that. Tinctures are a little bit easier. If it's a Chinese medicine in a pill form, then I'm kind of at a loss unless I supplement with a Western herbal tincture if it's necessary. But I kind of mix and match depending on what's necessary, which is really fun, and I feel so grateful to have such a luscious bag of tricks.
Yeah. Yeah, more tools in the toolkit. It would be really fun to see like you to publish or write up some case studies where you're, frequently using both, and not just as, in silos, but really using both, and how those, as herbalists, we don't recommend herbs that it's like this herb is doing that over there and this herb is doing that over there. It's all really working together. So it would be fascinating to look at how you're using these two different systems of, of assessment and kind of philosophy together in one person. And it's
Yeah,
just plants. The plants don't know that they're siloed, so they probably work really well together.
totally. Yeah, initially when I first started Chinese medicine school and I was still thinking about things from a Western herbal perspective and trying to contain both the diagnostic tools of like Chinese medicine diagnostic tool as well as more of a Western medicine within a herbal context type of diagnostic tool, I was having lots of discomfort. Like it was really difficult to bring these two together into a more harmonious whole. And I feel like it's a constant learning process. Like I still struggle with it sometimes. Other times it's easier, like see the patient, listen to the patient, Chinese medicine diagnosis, here we go. Or another patient like, oh, clearly Western, let's go Western all the way. And yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like you're like an interprofessional individual. Like you've got all these different tricks and all these different skills, and I love that, because sometimes it's clear, and I don't work with Chinese medicine specifically, but sometimes it's so clear that things are much more energetic, and sometimes it's just not like that at all. There's an energetic element, but it's very kind of physiological in understanding. So that's really cool. I love that. So becoming an acupuncturist and a Chinese herbalist, how much you've mentioned in our conversations before we started that your ancestry is from Taiwan, and there's like a strong connection. How much of that guided you down this path with Chinese medicine and acupuncture?
Back when I was working only with Western herbs, people would often ask me about Chinese herbs. And I felt a little bit shy to be like, well, my grandma did this or my mom did that, but I don't have any formal training in this realm. I don't feel confident actually suggesting that you take this or not. I'm going to, refer you to somebody else. And so that was one contributing factor, which I don't know, it's kind of like a little shameful, like, oh, they're asking me about my own culture and I don't know enough, I don't feel confident enough about my own culture to actually talk about it. There's a little bit of shame around that.
Oh, you can also look at that they're stereotyping you based on your
there's that too,
your ethnicity, and deciding that too. So you shouldn't feel shame around that.
There's that too. Yeah, but then on another level, my mom and my grandmas are all kind of old school Chinese people in that they're connected with the land, they're connected with what is growing around them, they understand what plants can be utilized for what, at least on a folk herbal level, which I love and greatly appreciate. And my grandpa, I have one grandpa alive and one grandpa no longer here. the one grandpa who is no longer here. Don't tell all the others, but he's my favorite. And he was this really classical Chinese guy. Like, he loved poetry. He read classical Chinese novels, and he was a beautiful calligraphy artist and just kind of beautiful everything. He had this incredible collection of plants in their home, and I spent my first year of life with that grandpa and grandma. So with the duck in the backyard and all the plants and him holding my fat little baby hand and doing calligraphy and stuff. So I feel like that was instilled pretty deeply as part of me. And I forgot your initial question, but that grandpa really comes through, and I feel like the traditional Chinese culture comes through. And after so many years of traveling around the US, going to different conferences, and then traveling around Asia and learning different things, it just felt right to kind of come back, like not continue going out and exploring all the infinite other things, but just coming back to something which is me, where I came from.
I love that. Yeah, what an interesting way to get there. That it was like deeply, it was in your heart already, and then people reminding you of that through some generalizations. But I have no question if people were asking you like which Chinese food to eat or something, it wouldn't have led you down that path. Like this was, this is your path. And so it nudged you in a weird way, but I really like that story of how you did that. So I want to hear more about your mom and your grandma and something. Will you tell me something they taught you, or some things, or something you remember eating, or just tell us a story or two about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in this little town called Glendora, and it's on the outskirts of Los Angeles County between LA and Riverside. And we, growing up, were one of the few Asian families in the area, so surrounded by a bunch of like very white people. And kind of a clean suburban type neighborhood with all kinds of fruit trees all over town. And my mom has this internal map of every single fruit tree. And
I
she
love that.
has, yeah, she knows where all the fruit trees are and all the rosemary bushes. She can tell you about every single little berry patch. Like, she knows the food in town. And she's spoken with most of the owners of the places with the fruit trees. The owners that she hasn't spoken with, she kind of watches their cars and knows when they come home and don't and are not home. And so
I love
she,
this.
from growing up, all right, from growing up all the way until now, my mom has a pulse on all of the food, all the free food that's available
That's
around
awesome.
town.
So any particular type of fruit trees that, you specifically think of that were
Yeah,
amazing, or just, yeah.
avocados galore,
Oh
so
my
much
gosh,
avocados.
yes.
Yeah. Avocados, there's pomegranates, there's lemons and oranges. Originally, Glendora used to be a huge lemon and orange orchard, so lots of those kinds of trees. There's some guavas, there's even papayas. It's Southern California, so with our Mediterranean climate, pretty much many things can flourish quite happily here.
Right. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. And so would your mom make any medicinal preparations from those, or were they simply for foods, anything with the citrus
Mm.
peels or anything fun?
So, oh, there was a ginkgo tree. There was an avenue lined with ginkgos that we would sometimes walk on our evening walks.
Hmm.
And in the autumn time, most of these were female ginkgos, so they would
Oh.
send their huge, stinky, aromatic nuts all down to the ground in these huge piles, and cars would roll over and make this huge stink and mess. And so we would go out there with plastic bags and rake them in and
Yeah.
take them home and prepare them by putting them in the oven, and they would make this huge smell when they're roasting in the oven. And so we ate quite a few of those during the
Hmm.
season, which um, was a little bit strong, pretty
Yeah.
strong, but good. And as far as the Chinese herbal formulas go, usually she would just like collect mints from someone else's place, maybe a little mint from our place, maybe a little bit of lemon, especially in the summertime. After I started learning about herbs, I showed her sun tea, and then she got really, really into sun tea. So she would collect this whole mishmash of stuff, like stuff from
Oh,
all over
nice.
the place, and stuff it into the bottle and make sun tea. And when I have friends come over, she'll be like, "This is sun tea, and there's all of these different herbs inside."
I love that. I also have a
Yeah.
mother who's super into sun tea and puts all sorts of random things in it. So I think that's great. I think that's really, I love that. We have that connection of our
Yeah,
parental
it's so
sun teas.
accessible. It's such a
It
fun
is.
thing to do.
It is. Absolutely. Oh, that's great. Oh, fun. So you identify with, with Taiwanese culture and ancestry, and then you're a Chinese herbalist. So what do you think your ancestors would recognize about what you do as an herbalist? And what do you think is totally different and they'd be shocked by?
Yeah, so they would recognize some of the plants themselves because many, or at least for the Chinese herbal side, many of the plants that were used way back and listed in the very first Materia Medica, the Shenlong Fen Cao Jing, are still in use today. Like minus the crazy minerals, minus the rhino horn, and like stuff like that. Many of those medicinals are still in use, which I think is quite remarkable, and I think that my ancestors would be pretty impressed by. Even my relatives in Taiwan are like, "Wow, y'all are still using those ancient formulas, cool." And then in that similar line, that we still study the classical texts is pretty remarkable as well. That from 3,000 years ago, what they were thinking and utilizing clinically and writing down because they thought that it was significant enough to take all the hard work of writing down, that those concepts are still applicable in this completely different modern world context that we live in is quite remarkable. They would be, I think, interested in the procuring of herbal goods, that it doesn't come from the farmer across the street, that it doesn't come right from the city
Hmm.
where we're living and working in, but we're shipping and sourcing our herbs from the entire planet. There's saffron from one place, and there's rose petals from closer in, and there's all these different things coming from so many different places to present to ourselves and the people that we work with. And that accessibility is renders herbal medicine today in my practice, like it feels a little bit more accessible, but at the same time it's also a little bit concerning, like, oh wow,
Mm,
where's everything coming from?
right.
And as far as the granules that I really like to use in my clinical practice, I think they might raise their eyebrows at that a little bit. Because traditionally we use decoctions. Like
Hmm.
we put things into a big pot. You can see everything, everything is laid out. First it was given to you on a piece of paper and then wrapped up in paper. You put it all into the pot, you cook it for forever. It takes
And
a
you
lot of
smell
time.
it during that time period, right? It's like
Yeah, you
part of your
smell it and
life
it's
for a while. Yeah.
tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just like you take one small scoop of this white pearlescent substance and then put it into a cup and there you go. It's a much bigger, much more involved process. So ancestors might be like, "Oh, what's that?" Or they might be like, "Wow, here we go. Here's our first sound disturbance. There goes the military."
I know. I was like,
All
what is
right.
that?
Yeah, that was a massive helicopter. Okay, so I was talking about the use of the granules.
Hmm.
Anything else? I
So
think
we'll
that's it
finish
for
up, do what you said with the granules again. I think if he's going to chop out some of that. So you
okay.
were saying that they would be, and maybe just start with like, yeah, that they would be surprised at the white pearlescent substance that you just drink and, something like that. go back there? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think my ancestors would perhaps be a little bit surprised at the granules, like what they look like, what they smell like. There's still a little bit of smell, but it's not nearly as strong as the smell of the herb itself. But I find them very, very effective. And for the patients who need something which is cheap and simple for the modern life, it's really effective. And that part might be exciting to my ancestors, that wow, these crazy 2020 people have figured out something which fits in with everything else that they're doing. It's surprising how we modify something which is ancient to fit something which is modern.
Yeah. I think ancient people would probably feel like we were gods or goddesses at times, or royals, because of our, I mean, you know, if you want to have 20 pounds of rose petals, you simply push a couple buttons and then someone brings it to you. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And not just rose petals, like exotic things from far lands, and you can have them within hours. I mean, days. Like you don't have to commission a ship, and you know, it's so wild to think about that. And yet at the same time, I think about how much people would treasure saffron or vanilla or whatever it was that they had, the cinnamon, that they waited for so long, and it was so special, and you know, bananas, whatever it was. And now we're just, you know, whatever. Like I think we still love them, but not in that way. So if
there's not that sense of specialness.
Yes, I know that treasure. So if you could go back and study with your either ancestors or just people that were also herbalists and Chinese herbalists in Taiwan a long time ago, what would you like to learn from them? What would you spend your day doing? You've just got one day with these ancestors to learn what you can.
Oh, one day. Oh.
One day, that's it. That's it. But it's a full day. It's 24 hours, so no sleeping.
Yes. So what originally got me into herbal medicine was this connection with the land. I love romping around in the wilderness. I love plant identification. I love getting into it and getting dirty with the plants. And that plant identification will forever be this magical joy for me. So I would love to spend a day with Shen Long, is known as the godfather of Chinese medicine. I would love to spend a day with Shen Long, romping around somewhere in the mountains of China, picking his brain, having him show me the various herbs, where they grow, how he has experienced them, and that would be amazing.
That does sound amazing. Yeah. And so this person that you're mentioning, who's considered, did you say the godfather of Chinese medicine? Is that the term?
Yeah, so Shen Nong, his name is translated as some people translate as a divine farmersman, if you've heard that before.
Okay. And so did he actually go out and find and gather Chinese medicines? He wasn't like a scholar that was hands off, or?
Yeah, so he's called the divine farmersman because he's often depicted in old school drawings with like the head of a human and the body of an animal, like kind of like a centaur. So he's this wild guy. He's this wild guy, and he's usually like shirtless with like maybe something hanging on him, a little board on his stick. So he is not a scholar. It's purported that most likely the Shen Nong Ben Cao Jing, or the divine husbandmen's or farmersmen's materia medica, Shen Nong Ben Cao Jing, divine farmersmen's materia medica, that it was actually like the Dao De Jing, most likely compiled from a bunch of different people. Like that's Chinese old school style anyhow. The community creates the document, not the document is written by one incredible gentleman.
I love that.
And yeah, and there's it said that Shenlong, he would go out and he would taste everything. And by tasting everything, old school organoleptics, by tasting everything, he would understand how it worked within his own body, and from there be able to share that with other people. And so he poisoned himself quite nicely. He hurt himself pretty good, but he learned a lot of things along the way.
So if we want to find out more about him, will you spell his name in Pinyin so people could look him up?
Yeah, so Shen is S-H-E-N, Long is N-O-N-G. That's his name,
Okay.
Shenlong.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's so helpful. I thank you so much for teaching me about this new person, because I do think about, I guess I have this impression of a lot of the, you know, the origins of Chinese medicine coming from these scholars who were, and this is probably a very incorrect interpretation, but these like fancy scholars who were just writing the things down, but there were other people who were like gathering the plants and doing a lot of the work. And so I love the idea of this wild plant person animal and their connection to the earth. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
So you told me about how he poisoned himself and did all sorts of things. I was wondering if you'd tell me about an herbal disaster that happened to you or that you did to someone else.
Oh, nice lead up. So back when I was first learning about how to make herbal preparations, I had a nice hiccup with salve making. And actually, this question, there's been so many learning disasters along the way, and I'm happy to say that as I proceed along my journey, there's less and less disasters, but there's been a lot along the way. So this salve making disaster was, at that time, nobody had yet told me about the double boiler method. And so I just had the oil right in the pot, right on top of the fire. And I was mixing everything and really grooving to it, got some nice music going on. Everything's happy, following the directions to a T, like kitchen smells good, life is happy. And then I come to the final part in which I'm adding essential oils to the salve, and I've carefully selected my collection of which expensive essential oils I'm going to throw into the mix. And without taking this nice hot pot off the stove, I drop a couple drops of my first essential right onto it, and it splatters all over the kitchen.
No. Oh no.
Yeah, and so there's like hot oil flying everywhere. I'm got some hot oil onto myself as well, and just it was a painful learning experience. That, oh yeah, like take it off a bit, let it cool. Double boiler method will come later at a later learning time, but it was just a kind of colorful mess.
And painful too, probably.
Pretty painful, yeah.
I was thinking you were going to tell us about deep frying your herbs, because I feel like every herbalist has done that at least once. Where, you know, at least I look at it and I'm like, yeah, no, those are not infused. Those are deep fried.
No, I haven't done that one yet, because back when I started doing infusions, I've always had the sun. So I usually do the solar infusion where they don't get deep fried.
Yes, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good disaster. Do you have any other disasters you want to share with us?
Let's see. There's another salve making, less of a disaster, more of a small mistake, in which I was putting alkanet into lip balm to just give it a little bit of redness, a little bit of color. And I did not strain the powdered alkanet out of the infusion that I had made with it. I didn't know that you had to do that. That was my first time working with it. So I put everything together, gorgeous lip balm, like, wow, beautiful red color, and don't discover until probably months later when I get down to the bottom of my lip balm that, oh man, all the powder has sunk to the bottom of the lip balm, and this is completely unusable. But before realizing that it was unusable, first I had gone around for maybe a whole week with like crusty alkanet all over my
Oh no, gritty lipstick. It's like,
Yeah, super
yeah,
gritty.
that's funny. Oh goodness. I haven't put alkanet in lip balm or anything like that for a while. It's a good reminder about using
Mm.
that. So, for those who aren't familiar with alkanet, what do you like about adding it? Is it just color, or any other reason you like to add it to your lip balm?
I feel like it's a little bit warming. So it gives me a little bit of a warming and slightly nourishing, a little bit stimulating sensation when I put it onto my lips. And the color is not too exciting. Like
Mhm.
or at least I don't put in too much to make it
Right, right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you can
pretty
definitely put in
subtle.
enough to make it ridiculous. Yeah.
How do you experience alkanet?
I think I've more just played with it more for color. I don't think I'm ever consistent enough with making lip balm to know
Mm.
whether it's all the other stuff I tried putting in there that time or whether it's the alkanet. But it is fun, and I'm just realizing with a little one who's often asking to try, wearing lipstick or something like that, that this
Oh,
could be a
yeah.
fun. I need to break it out and make some. So thanks for the reminder. So you've had this meandering path and you've done all these different things. And what what do you feel like you're relearning right now? Is there any evolution happening right now in who you are as an herbalist or your understanding of things?
Hmm. Yeah, so right now, working with a bunch of patients and working with insurance companies from
Mm,
the acupuncture aspect, but also weaving that into the herbal realm. It's and building a business. I'm learning a lot through that process. So the
I bet.
question of yeah, so the question of accessibility, which we talked a little bit about before, really comes into play with lower income patients who are coming in and utilizing their insurance for treatments.
Hmm.
So because of that, uh, that's a question that I have when I give people herbal recommendations. Like, how can I give this recommendation to best suit my patient's needs?
Hmm.
Maybe I keep it simple, like some kind of digestive disturbance. Okay, I'm going to send you to Vaughn's for chamomile tea. Nothing fancy, just chamomile tea.
Hmm.
It can work wonders. Right? Or
Yeah.
that element of patient education is huge, teaching people how to use these simple things, like maybe sage. We have a bunch of sage that lives around us, how to utilize sage in a culinary way or in a tea-based way uh, for medicinal purposes and culinary purposes, or
And when you're talking
utilizing.
about that, you're talking about garden sage, right? Not white sage.
Yes, we're not going to
Great,
use white sage. Yeah,
great, great.
but we do have a bunch of that growing around here too.
Yeah,
And
great.
the black sage and purple sage and a bunch of sages.
Nice.
Yeah, so learning how to make things accessible for people.
Hmm.
Um, and then for time constraints, uh, for myself, as like holding all these different roles as an herbalist and as a healthcare provider, figuring out how to manage good work-life balance and good time
Hmm.
management skills, because my tendency is to do everything, and
Hmm.
I'm realizing that, well, if I'm teaching and I'm seeing patients and I'm writing herbal articles and I'm having a life, it really leaves very little time for sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you feel like you're learning how to care for yourself as well. Is that part of
Yeah.
this? Any you want to give us any
Yeah.
tidbits? I mean, I think all pretty much every person in the world right now is also learning a little bit about that, and you have a really
Mm.
fascinating array of skills that you're putting in your toolkit for this. Any tips on how we can care better for ourselves right now, or anything we should think about?
Hmm. Considering what feels the best in terms of all the panoply of what one is doing. So with all these different things, for example, I feel like what feeds me the most is outdoor time on
Mm-hmm.
a personal nourishing level. So just making sure that I get in a little bit of outdoor time every single day and at least once a week, a whole day of outdoor time, be it a hike, be it a surf and a bike ride and a hike, or just some way to fill my day with open sky and nature. And then as far as the work-related stuff going, what feels best and what is most beneficial. So I love the intersection of taking what I receive from outdoor time and bringing it into the clinic, and bringing these learnings from time with plants and working with plants and sharing that with people, and hopefully inspiring something a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more clear for people to work with.
I love that. You can bring that gift, all those gifts that we receive outside, and bring that to yourself, but also to your patients. So that's a really nice way. One of the questions I like to ask anybody that I get to interview is to hear about someone or some people that are inspiring you right now, because I'm sure if they're inspiring you, then we all want to know about them. So, and it could be, it doesn't have to be a person. It could also be like some music or a book or a movie or, poetry, whatever. What's inspiring you?
I love Seven Song.
Seven Songs, all of the above, right?
I know, right? Music, poetry, da, 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 da.
Movies, dance, all that, yeah.
Yeah, so Seven Song was my first formal herbal teacher, and my year with him as his apprentice at the Northeast School of Botanical Medicine was completely transformative. It transformed how I live as a human being, as well as how my life path and clinical outlook, approach with plants, possibilities for the future. Like, everything was transformed, and that transformation from so many years ago continues to inform my life today. And and I just so greatly admire how Seven Song lives and shows up in the world, and down to the details of, like, he's the eccentric herbalist that lives on the edge of town and comes into town twice a week to work in the clinic, at least pre-COVID days, and then goes back out of town, has students at his home, has a freaking pond at his home that he gets to jump into whenever he feels like it, does all these nature walks, travels the world teaching, and provides free clinic, and just all these different elements. There's so much to be excited about, nourished by, and inspired by from Seven Song. And we continue to talk on the phone and stuff. And when I have clinical questions, like what we were talking about before, as far as like, more complex diagnostic questions, and reaching in with the Chinese medicine and the Western herbalism type integration. He doesn't have much on the Chinese medicine side, which is cool. I've got that, and I have other mentors for that. But for the Western herbal aspect, very helpful.
Oh, I love that. I also have a real fondness for Seven Song. He's one of my teachers, and so I can absolutely connect with you on that. And I think he also brings a lightness to a lightness to the heaviness that's happening right now, without dismissing any of the heaviness. It's not trivializing anything. So I very much appreciate that. Is there anyone else you wanted to mention who is you're thinking about, or any other pieces of work or anything?
Right now, the ocean.
The ocean.
I live really close to the ocean. The ocean is right over there, and just it's beautiful. It's nourishing, and I remember going up to Maine when I lived on the East Coast, and hanging out for maybe a week with Larch Hansen, gathering seaweed up there, and just being amazed and inspired by the life that grows in the ocean, and a completely different way of wildcrafting. Totally different than wildcrafting on land. Like, different things to watch out for. No rattlesnakes, but big concern about sun and water and the coldness, and constantly in motion, as opposed to the solidity of the earth underfoot, the constant rocking motion, and the attention to time, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the ocean, and this continual expression and reminder of cycling and fluidity and ease is also a huge metaphor in Chinese medicine, and how qi flows and the fluid nature of our body systems, and it's a beautiful reminder.
Oh, I love that. You just painted such a gorgeous picture of that. I was just right there with you. I grew up in New Hampshire and Maine, so I have a strong affinity for those coasts and those sea plants, and yeah, that's a connection. Um, so you've been really successful in your herbal career and your herb work, and I'm going to make a guess that you're relatively young, and you know you're really doing it, and it's awesome, and I'm sure it's very inspiring for a lot of other herbalists. What would you share with a budding herbalist? What is a secret to success, or something that's going to help get them along their path?
So I would like to remind budding herbalists that there is no job description for herbalists. That there is no job description, and not to sound trite, but the sky is really the limit. And like, dream big and explore different avenues. Figure out what is it that I am interested in. Maybe that'll change tomorrow, but for today, explore that. And by exploring different avenues of interest and really following that golden thread of connection, at some point, that thread, those light threads will start to weave themselves into a thicker cord until it becomes this strong rope. And then you just follow that, and it'll take you somewhere fantastic, presumably.
Oh, I love
And
that.
if the opportunities are not existing, then be bold and create opportunities for yourself. In my education, I've done so much work trade, and I've gone directly to teachers and to people that I admire, and started up conversations, be it in person at a herb conference, or via email, or some way which requires a little bit of courage to go out there and talk to somebody that you look up to. And but from there, incredible possibilities can open up, and each new connection creates a multiplicity of further connections.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing everything you did today with us. And I loved hearing about these just connections with different time and place throughout your life, and how you brought that all together and made something really beautiful. So thank you again for being here, and I'm sure everyone will be so inspired by what you're doing. And I'm inspired.
Great. Thank you, Bevin.
Thank you.